tonight, where the Democrats go from here, what the Kurds have left, and the Belieber leading a celebrity megachurch.
Say amen like a Pentecostal believer should.
The Philippine defense minister said the country will stop construction on a sandbar in the South China Sea after objections from Beijing. China claims ownership over most of the waters, where it's been beefing up its military presence and creating artificial islands. The halted project was located in the Spratly Islands, an archipelago claimed by several nations. President Duterte made the decision ahead of the APEC summit in Vietnam, where the Philippine leader is expected to push for a code of conduct in the South China Sea. Today, 1 year after Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to remove high-denomination currency from circulation, opponents of the move took to the streets to protest, wore garlands made of old notes, and formed a human chain representing the snaking lines outside banks after the surprise announcement made 500 and 1,000 rupee notes illegal overnight. Indian officials have said the move targeted so-called black money and pushed the country towards digital transactions as a way to fight corruption. Critics blame the switch for job losses and a slowing economy. The Trump administration announced new restrictions for Americans traveling to Cuba. Going forward, trips will have to be through authorized tour operators, and groups will need guides to accompany them. Access to more than 100 hotels, stores, and other businesses with ties to the Cuban military and intelligence services will also be restricted. The new rules go into effect tomorrow. Maine Governor Paul LePage is refusing to implement a Medicaid expansion that was overwhelmingly approved by voters yesterday. LePage, a Republican who has vetoed expansion 5 times before, says the program has to be fully funded by the legislature and that he, quote, will not support increasing taxes on Maine families. "365 days after Donald Trump won the presidency, frustrated and horrified Democrats finally landed a serious counterpunch on Tuesday night. Progressives voted in droves in off-year elections around the country and made major dents in Republican control of state and local governments.
Let's hear some Bon Jovi. God bless y'all.
In New Jersey, Democrats won the race to replace Governor Chris Christie. And in Washington state, they won a special election to flip control of the state Senate.
We are back by popular demand.
Voters in Virginia made the biggest statement of all, sending Ralph Northam to the governor's mansion and picking up 15 seats in the House of Delegates, their biggest gain since the 19th century.
So about last night. Yes, it was a really good night for Democrats. And yes, we can start talking about whether Donald Trump's unpopularity could put control of the House of Representatives in play. That's still a huge challenge, though. Democrats would need to pick up 24 seats to flip the House. But the Virginia results offer some clues about how they could do it.
And I'm here to let you know that the doctor is in.
Ralph Northam actually improved on Hillary Clinton's 5-point win in Virginia. He won his race by 9. Northam did that partly by driving up Democratic turnout in the cities and suburbs, which suggests enthusiasm in the Democratic base is high. Northam also did better than Clinton with the wealthy, well-educated white voters that tend to lean Republican but are up for grabs for Democrats if the conditions are right. Those are the kinds of voters Democrats would need to win back the House. But the Virginia results held a warning for Democrats too. Northam fared about as badly as Clinton did with non-college educated white voters, losing 72% of them. And that could have major consequences for the Senate map. Democrats are on defense there, protecting 25 seats, 10 of them in states Donald Trump won. None of those states look much like Virginia, which has been trending Democratic for the past decade anyway. So I talked to Senator Chris Van Hollen, the Maryland Democrat that runs Senate Democrats' campaign arm, about what Virginia means for them.
So I see it as the beginning of the return of the Jedi a year from now. It's good news for Senate races, not just because you had Democrats winning the governor seats in Virginia and in New Jersey, but the scope of the victory and the margin of the victory. This went very deep and very wide.
Do you think it's possible to take back the Senate?
We have a very tough political map. But 1 year out, we also see an incredible amount of grassroots energy. So we are going to work very hard, first of all, to hold the blue line in the Senate, because we are the only thing standing between President Trump and a lot of bad things because of that ability to block things. But we're also going to be taking advantage of the opportunities that come up, and we have more and more opportunities come up.
Do you think it's more likely now than it was before Virginia?
Let's face it, it would have been a blow if Democrats had lost the governor's race in Virginia. But what is so telling about Virginia is the size, the margin of the victory in the governor's race and the scope of the victory right down the ballot. And you're seeing that not just in Virginia, you're seeing it across the country. So that's a very positive sign that people are energized to fight back against the Trump Republican agenda. And I do think more and more Trump voters will realize that they are not getting what they bargained for.
Coming off their first big election win since Trump won a year ago, Democrats have a lot to feel confident about. Trump's current 36% approval rating is the lowest of any president at this point in his term. But among his core voters, this president knows he can do no wrong.
He has gone beyond what we hoped and dreamed for.
That's my guy right
It's
there.
more than I expected.
It's about you, it's not about me.
Far exceeded the high expectations that I've had.
Vice News asked a few of the MAGA faithful why they got aboard the Trump train and what, if anything, could convince them to get off.
Trump first got my vote 30 years ago.
He captured my attention immediately.
You know, I love the way that he does say it like it is.
Really cares about the priorities of the people and not the 1%.
There was no way that we could let Hillary get in there.
We will build a great wall along the southern border.
I have absolutely zero doubt that he will do it.
He puts that out there that we're going to build this big wall. And then you scale it back to what he actually wanted.
We really need that wall.
He's 9 steps ahead of everybody, and he knows what he's doing.
If our president backed off building the border wall, he would not be Donald Trump.
We will heal our divisions and unify our country. We will be a unified country again.
To me, that would seem like Dr. Van Helsing working together with Count Dracula.
I am still waiting for Mr. Trump to keep the promise of locking her up.
Our president would never work with Hillary Clinton.
But if he did, I guess I would have to look at that and see what it is.
Just because it's involving Hillary Clinton doesn't mean that he can't do something positive.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
I watched that rally live when he said that, and he was not actually saying what you just told me that he said.
I might have my second thoughts. I mean, let's face it, the guy was joking.
That would be one of the things that would give me great pause, okay, on the mental stability.
He didn't mean it.
I would know for a fact that it would be in either self-defense or he would be protecting someone that needed protection. So I would absolutely support him knowing his heart.
I think that the media spreads lies, but the whole point of you asking me if I would stop supporting my president, I'm gonna tell you absolutely not. I started supporting him since day one, and I will continue to support my president.
As a candidate, Trump used a story about an undocumented immigrant charged with killing a San Francisco woman to rile up his base. And the late Kate Steinle became the face of a fierce debate over sanctuary cities and illegal immigration. Now the murder trial of Jose Ines Garcia Zarate is underway. David Noriega reports from San Francisco.
The shooting of Kate Steinle was the first in a series of events that carried Donald Trump to the White House. It happened exactly 2 weeks and 1 day after Trump announced his presidential campaign and was facing a backlash for calling Mexican immigrants criminals.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Steinle's death gave him exactly the kind of ammunition he needed. Trump started mentioning Steinle constantly to the media and on the campaign trail.
Another victim is Kate Steinle, gunned down in the sanctuary city of San Francisco.
Steinle's death was tragic and senseless, and it demanded some kind of explanation. Trump offered an explanation in the form of an indictment of San Francisco as a sanctuary city, a concept that not many people had even heard of at the time. The trial itself, though, is focused only on the facts of the case, specifically on whether the defendant, Ines Garcia Zarate, meant to fire the bullet that killed Kate Steinle.
No culpable.
No guilty.
Both the prosecution and the defense agree on a few things. Garcia Zarate, who was homeless and had a history of drug use, found a gun wrapped in a t-shirt on the San Francisco pier. That gun had been stolen out of a park ranger's car a few days prior. He picked up the gun and it went off. The bullet ricocheted off the pavement and traveled nearly 100 feet before it struck Steinle in the back. The defense says that all of this suggests that the shooting was an accident. So why was Garcia Zarate charged with murder and not a lesser charge like manslaughter? A spokesman for the district attorney told us that the charge was based purely on the facts of the case. But Jeff Adachi, San Francisco's elected public defender, says it's more complicated than that.
From the onset, the judge made it clear that he didn't want politics entering this trial. But it's the elephant in the room.
Did the political furor surrounding this case, as far as you believe, have any effect on the way the district attorney has handled this particular prosecution?
There has never been a case of a bullet ricocheting off the ground, hitting somebody from 80 feet away, charged as a murder.
Steinle's death obviously caused political waves on the national level. But those waves were even stronger here in San Francisco, which came under intense scrutiny for its status as a sanctuary city. The story of how Garcia Zarate wound up living on the streets of San Francisco is complex. After he had served a prison sentence for illegally re-entering the country, something he had done many times, the feds transferred him to San Francisco on a 20-year-old warrant for a minor marijuana offense. San Francisco dismissed that case, and that's where the city's sanctuary law kicked in. The sheriff's department released Garcia Zarate, even though ICE had asked them to keep him locked up for deportation. After the shooting, city officials scrambled to respond, and it seemed for a time that they might actually walk back their sanctuary policies. In the end, though, the opposite happened. They voted to strengthen them a few months before Trump was elected.
We always have been a city of refuge, a city of sanctuary, a city of love.
About 300 people were out, locking themselves up in front of the ICE office.
John Avalos was a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors until this year. He wrote the current sanctuary policies, under the premise that protecting immigrants makes them more willing to cooperate with law enforcement, and therefore contributes to public safety. I think a lot of people look at the Steinle case and think, after something like this happens, how is it possible that a city could stand by its sanctuary policy? How is it possible to defend that in the face of an event like that?
Acknowledge that Kate Steinle's killing has affected us to our very core, and that makes us really sad and outraged. But I also say that, this one incident by this one hapless individual, who I do not believe intended to kill her, doesn't represent the entire immigrant community. And when it comes down to it, our sanctuary policy does good. If we had our sanctuary city policy taken away, our city would be less safe.
But the president and his supporters aren't convinced by this argument, which leaves us with a seemingly intractable conflict between the Trump administration on the one hand and a progressive city on the other. And that's one more way in which a shooting on a pier in this city brought us into the era of Trump.
Last month, Iraq's central government seized control of disputed territory, oil, and vital border crossings from the Kurds in the north in just a matter of days, ushering in a new phase of politics with international players vying for influence. Meanwhile, the Kurdish region is reeling from its losses.
For 3 years, Kurdish Peshmerga fighters controlled oil fields like this one in Iraq's disputed territories. They moved in when Iraqi forces fled an ISIS offensive approaching the area. But 1 month ago, after a Kurdish referendum vote Baghdad deemed illegal, central government troops returned. They were prepared for a tough battle to take it back. But instead, soldiers including Saif Hatem swept in without a fight.
كنا ما متوقعين إنه أكو قوة راح تواجهنا من الكراد بس ماكو شيء طبعاً مسالمين سلموا سلاحهم عملية كانت كلش سهلة.
Under a deal between the central government and a Kurdish faction opposed to then-President Masoud Barzani, many Peshmerga fighters withdrew before the offensive even began.
ليش تتفكر صارت سهلة هيك شيء؟
سحب القوات وكان بس مسعود والقوات الضعيفة ما قدر يقاوم هذا الكم الهائل من القوات. انسحب باتجاه أربيل.
Before the latest conflict, oil fields in the disputed territories were pumping out some 550,000 barrels of oil daily. Iraqi troops now also control the pipeline and border crossing, which runs through the Kurdish region and into the Turkish port of Ceyhan. It means that hundreds of millions of dollars in profits from the region's oil exports are now entirely under Baghdad's control, leaving the Kurdish region dealing with the sudden loss of resources, which had been vital in its push for independence. In nearby Kurdish-held towns and cities, including Kirkuk, some Peshmerga did put up a fight, and Iraqi soldiers didn't confront them alone. They had help from the PMU, a coalition of predominantly Shia militia fighters who were accused by Kurds and the US of being an instrument of Iran.
اوكي احنا وين هسه؟
هذا طريق كركوك بغداد للخط الرئيسي. المعركة هنا كانت بدت من هنا.
المعركة كانت صعبة لو؟
أكثر من أنا يعني حسبت 32 قتيل. أول صاروخ استهدفهم عافوا النسبة. يعني قتل مجموعة كبيرة منهم.
The PMU's role in this offensive, as well as the operation to drive ISIS out of Iraq, helped make the group and its leaders a major force in the country. It's left the US red-faced. On one hand, it's been publicly pursuing a hardline approach against the Iranian regime, but on the other hand, the US supported Baghdad over the Kurds during the referendum vote, and that's allowed Iran to increase its influence in the region. Abu Mustafa al-Imami is the deputy commander of the PMU in northern Iraq. He denies allegations of foreign meddling in the conflict.
واللي دخلوا كركوك ليسوا أجانب وإنما عراقيين حقيقيين مع الدول. لا يوجد لدينا أي مانع. الحكومة العراقية هو الصاحب القرار، هو اللي يقرر، هو هذا يعود لهم. فنحن مطيعين للحكومة، مطيعين للحكومة الموجودة ونؤمن بحكومتنا.
Despite playing down Iran's influence, Al-Imami echoed the words of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini, who claimed that Israel and the US would benefit from Kurdish independence.
شلون هسه العلاقة السياسية بينكم وبين الأكراد والبشمركة؟
ما عندنا أي مشكلة مع الأخوة الكرد، ولكن هناك من يقف وراء مجموعة من الأكراد السهاينة الدول الغربية، وهم أصبحوا يعني أداة لهؤلاء فينفذون المخططات الأعداء، مخططات الخارجين عن القانون. هم خرجوا عن القانون.
The city of Kirkuk is ethnically diverse. Kurdish, Arab and Turkmen residents continue to work side by side. But thousands of Kurds who live in Kirkuk and other disputed territories said that the arrival of Shia militia in their Sunni Kurdish neighbourhoods and the threat of sectarian fighting forced them to flee. Some are now living in half-built homes in the Kurdish capital, Erbil. Parwin, her husband Adnan and their 3 children left Kirkuk when Iraqi forces moved in. They don't know when or if they'll be able to return.
لولا هيز نما يترحش شعبي لولا لا بيشتوهات إما يفرشت إما يتوكل كم لا خوشة شو دوس على من هلا كركوش يوم نعومي نكاربامي هيك منيا.
So this is where you're sleeping?
Yes.
With 3 children?
Yes. أو خوارنا كما أو جنبانا كمان أو هم مستروت وسامانا ما جير. حسيتي كان عدد هابي قريان متي بكركو. هذا دونا كنت حق بيقرد. صحشت حق بقى. عربكان لجر علي كردستان رقصكن بلام كرد لجر علي عراق تشوسيتوا بو أوانش هولاتين يا مش هولاتين.
Like Parwin, many Kurds in Erbil and other Kurdish cities are angry. Not only at the political crisis, but also at their long-standing US allies for not intervening to stop the Kirkuk offensive.
Over the weekend in Los Angeles, close to 100,000 worshipers attended the Hillsong Conference, a star-studded religious summit for fashion-forward Pentecostals. Hillsong is an Australia-based megachurch and pulled in more than $100 million last year. And its American headliner is Carl Lentz, a buff, charismatic pastor who's buddies with Justin Bieber.
I got good news for you on the season because Jesus is right in the middle of it with you.
Every Sunday, 8,000 souls fill the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York to hear sermons from Lentz, who just released a book called Own the Moment. Mary H.K. Choi spoke to the pastor about the church, his book, and his look.
For every single part of this service, Lord.
Do you think Jesus would have worn Rick Owens?
Often people ask about that, the fashion stuff. And the only reason why they ask is because they're just not used to seeing a church where people look like normal people. So if you come into our church, we already win because I look just like you. I have regular stuff on.
You have Rick Owens on. We talked about this.
Church attendance is on the decline, but not at Hillsong. Service is 90 minutes, throbbing with attractive, racially diverse people, and is a cross between Soul Cycle and karaoke with a band.
Come on, sing it out. To the one who is rescued my soul. Come on.
Jesus, I pray tonight that you would do what only you can do.
Carl speaks for a half hour in between songs in a race against modern attention spans. And it's a formula that scales for huge audiences. Conferences are held in stadiums like Madison Square Garden. Merch, of course, is crucial.
Your flock, so to speak, is 8,000 strong. Is this just a long con to sell books?
This is separate from church in that we're not bringing it into church. This isn't like a built-in audience. So the real short answer is no.
I can just speak from my own life. God has never called me at a good time. That is exactly how you should be living right now. Worship until God tells you to stop.
If you've heard of Hillsong, it's likely due to Lentz's social media clout and his celebrity friends.
How do you reconcile like pop culture and like church culture sometimes being at cross purposes?
Just because we connect with culture doesn't mean that we have sold out to culture. So our job isn't necessarily to always vilify culture.
So culture is the conduit through which you transmit your message.
1,000,000%. We're gonna hustle culture rather than culture always hustling maybe the church.
Is Justin Bieber to Hillsong what Tom Cruise is to Scientology?
No, it's apples and oranges. Because Scientology is so out there, they're like, you're the guy. So if we can get you indoctrinated quick enough, we're gonna make you the spokesman. We've never done that. Justin's never set foot on a stage.
This is not a show. We're not here to put on religious performance, Jesus. We're here because we need you now. Say amen like a Pentecostal believer should.
Hillsong works. Their global audience is staggering. 6.1 billion minutes of Hillsong content was viewed on YouTube last year. Hillsong United, one of their music groups, went double platinum. It's shiny packaging for age-old messages.
You seem progressive, you dress cool. What is your stance on marriage equality?
So I think we have a PR problem. Marriage equality, it's a non-issue because the laws of the land, in New York City, gay people can get married.
But I guess my question is, in your opinion, is marriage only between a man and a woman?
My opinion is secondary to what we believe the Bible's opinion is. So Hillsong Church, traditionally for 30 years, we would say the Bible is really clear that marriage is between a man and a woman. And I believe the Bible says what it says, and I interpret it exactly as the Bible says. We get killed from both sides. The Christian right thinks that we're too open. The super left thinks we're not loud enough in our affirmation.
Caught in the middle as they might be, Hillsong and Lentz are relevant. How that influence and reach will play out remains to be seen.
So you're an influencer, and even a hashtag influencer. If you could influence politics in the U.S., would you take it that far?
Yeah, I think I've had some small moments where I've had a chance to do that a little bit. I mean, I'm open to whatever, but I don't think I'll be doing politics solely, no.
But if there was like a Hillsong member in the Oval Office, that would be pretty cool.
It would be rad, yeah. I've done some White House stuff on the sly.
What does that mean?
Like, been in rooms with people who make big decisions.
Which administration?
This one.
Oh.
That's Vice News Tonight for Wednesday, November 8th.